It's been over a decade since the United States signed the Wolf Amendment, effectively banning NASA from cooperating with China in space exploration and scientific research. Now, 13 years later, it seems that China are well on their way to becoming the leader in space. As we've seen with microchips, manufacturing, and various other industries, it seems that America first bans China in an attempt to stifle their inevitable development in a sector, only to then be overtaken by them further along the line. But what's happening in space? And who will come out on top as the leader? The space race between the United States and China is shaping up to be a highly competitive chapter in global affairs. So over a decade ago, Congress, fearing Chinese advancements in space and wanting to put speed bumps in front of their development, passed what became known as the Wolf Amendment. This 2011 law banned NASA from any direct cooperation with the Chinese government and its affiliated organizations without explicit US authorization. This amendment has been renewed each year since passing, showing that America will stop at nothing to halt China's advancements in areas where the US feels threatened. At the time, the pretext for the amendment, according to the US, was that the law would be passed in an attempt to persuade China to improve their human rights policies. However, in the 13 years since the first iteration of this amendment, the US has not seen the effects that the Wolf Amendment was intended to bring about. Instead of hindering China's development, it seems to have spurred it on instead. During this time, China's economy, global influence, and space capabilities have continued to grow. Being left out of the US-led international missions in space has not deterred China, but instead has had rather the complete opposite effect, having pushed China to develop parallel and arguably further-reaching capabilities on its own. Without a way to contribute to the International Space Station, the ISS, China began developing and testing its own modular space station. China launched the Tiangong-1 and Tiangong-2 space laboratories in 2011 and 2016 respectively, as testbeds for a permanent space station. The China National Space Administration then announced that the permanent Chinese space station, the CSS, should be fully operational by the year 2022, and indeed, now the Chinese have their own space station. What's more, it will soon be the only one functioning, as the ISS is due to shut down in the coming years, hindering China's development by preventing their cooperation on a technology, only for them to end up jumping ahead of everyone else. Does that sound familiar? Could we see a similar effect with microchips? More on that later. In fact, with Russia now announcing that they intend to withdraw from the ISS this year to develop their own space station, it seems that America's Wolf Amendment and blocking of China to help with scientific research in space has been a backfire of gigantic proportions. Instead of having a single mission for humanity in space, whereby America can observe and stay within the loop, two of the world's biggest superpowers and America's adversaries have now decided to go their own way. So what we've witnessed over the last decade is a prime example of American plans to thwart a country's growth, actually turbocharging it. What was meant as an American safeguard against their technological lead being overtaken actually spurred China into a fiercely independent space venture, soon to be arguably the best in the world. So, how did China react all those years ago when America decided to block them from cooperating on international space missions? Well, they knew that if they were to challenge in space, they could not sit still. They had to go their own way, which is exactly what they set about doing. Over the past decade, they have poured billions into space research and development, which has culminated in their most recent breakthrough mission, sending the Chang'e 6 to the dark side of the moon in an attempt to retrieve lunar samples. This ambitious project is a world first, and has led to representatives from at least 50 nations worldwide expressing their eagerness to work together with China in space. The mission has opened the world's eyes to China's capabilities in spaceflight and deep space exploration, And it now seems that China is the go-to nation to collaborate with in the field of space exploration. So much so that even NASA are now asking the US government to review the Wolf Amendment and are asking for permission to be allowed to work together with China. So from being leader in space to blocking China and excluding them from international missions to now being in a position where they actively want to work with China in space. It has been quite the decade of policy making from the United States. It is apparent that over the past decade, China's space program has achieved monumental successes, including multiple moon landings and the deployment of its own space station, Tiangong. The growth has been rapid. Their number of space missions and technological advancements have seemingly caught the US off guard, with China now poised to lead in exploring and utilizing lunar resources. So what's next in space? What are America doing to catch up? And how will this affect the world geopolitically? Well, looking ahead, China's space agenda is bold, and they are not planning on becoming complacent. Next up looks to be the construction of a potential lunar research station in collaboration with Russia. Meanwhile, due to policy constraints and budget issues, NASA has shifted its stance somewhat, outsourcing much of their work to private companies like Elon Musk's SpaceX. However, the space race is no longer a two-player game. Other nations and alliances like the European Space Agency, Russia, India, the G7 are also making significant strides. Private companies like SpaceX are further complicating the landscape as they engage in partnerships that sometimes transcend national boundaries, although they are yet to collaborate with China. As we look to the future, the trajectory of US-China space relations seem to hinge on a paradox of competition and cooperation. The ongoing rivalry could drive further innovations and perhaps even lead to a new era of space policy where collaboration becomes a strategic necessity rather than a choice. However, it is also possible that space could become a new frontier in geopolitical tension, mirroring the competitive undertones reminiscent of the Cold War. The implications of this race extend beyond the stars. They could influence global technological standards, military capabilities, and even international policy on space resource utilization. Now, China's policy has always been to collaborate and cooperate with other countries for the good of everyone, utilizing win-win relationships in order to bring forth common prosperity. Hopefully, for the good of everyone, the two most powerful countries on Earth, America and China, can come together to further technology and space exploration so that the whole world can benefit. Thanks for watching. Please like and share, and for more content on travel, business, geopolitics and infrastructure from inside China, go ahead and subscribe to the channel and follow me over on my new Instagram page about China, which I've dropped in the description below. See you in the next one.